everyone. Okay, we would like to welcome you to this all-important event. My name is Garrison McBorough. I am your Master of Ceremony. And as you all know, this seminar is about the launching of the ARP, which is the Architects Registration Program. To our panelists, we say welcome. To our students, we say welcome. To our young architects, we say welcome. To all of the dean of the Stella Maris Polytechnic and the UL, we say welcome. Before we go further, we'd like to take a word of prayer. And as the MC, I'm going to undertake that task. So, shall we pray? O great architect of the universe, we come before your presence at this moment, asking you of your wisdom. We do not know it all. We ask you to guide us during these times. Help us as we launch this ARP. Give us the guidance and the necessary pathway that we need so that we can uplift architecture within this country. In Jesus' name, amen. So our keynote speaker is none other than Madam Ellen Pratt Harris. Kindly welcome her to the podium so that she can give us some insights on what she thinks we need to do in Liberia when it comes to architecture and the built environment. By the way, I think you can see the theme of the program is Building for the Future, Strengthening Professional Standards and Regulatory Capacity in Liberia. Thank you. Madam Pratt?
Good morning. This room is very quiet, but hopefully we will make a little bit more noise as the day goes along. Distinguished panelists, honorable officials, colleagues in the built environment, members of the Liberian Institute of Architects, students, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me start by extending my thanks to the Institute of Architects for the invitation to provide a keynote address today. This has been a long journey to get to this point, so I congratulate the Institute of Architects for this bold step moving forward. It is indeed welcomed in Liberia. So I have a few words to share, and it is both a privilege and a responsibility to stand before you today at the official launch of the Architects Registration Program. This moment represents more than the introduction of a regulatory framework. It signals Liberia's transition towards a structured, accountable, and forward-looking built environment, one that is central to national development. My keynote address today, titled Reimagining the Built Environment, the role of architecture and planning in advancing national development invites us to think beyond buildings and city plans or layouts, as we call them. I want us to rethink how our cities function, how our communities grow, and how architecture and planning can actively drive Liberia's economic, social, and institutional transformation. The future is in cities. As Wangara Maathai, Kenyan Nobel laureate and the first African woman to win the prize, reminded us, the way we plan, build, and manage our cities today will determine the quality of life, economic growth, and the opportunities for the generations to come. Cities are engines of national development. Let us begin with a simple but very powerful reality. Liberia is no longer a predominantly rural country. But let me be clear. Urban growth must not come at the expense of rural opportunity. Even as Liberia becomes increasingly urban, rural Liberia remains central to our national future as the foundation of food security, natural resource stewardship, and community stability. National development planning must therefore connect urban growth and rural opportunity so that people migrate to cities by choice, not by necessity. Today, over 54% of Liberia's population lives in urban areas. That is more than 3 million people, and the number goes up each year. Monrovia alone accommodates over 1.5 million people, nearly 1/3 of our population in one city. These are not just statistics. They represent a transformation in how Liberia lives, works, and grows. Cities are where economic activity concentrates. Cities are where infrastructure investments yield the highest return, and cities are where innovation, jobs, and services are created. But when cities grow without planning, the results are congestion, informality, unsafe construction, and lost economic potential. The results are what Monrovia looks like. And we must also acknowledge the other side. When rural areas are left behind without roads, services, or economic opportunity, our cities absorb that pressure. Rural development is not separate from urban planning. It is one of the most effective strategies for reducing informality, easing congestion, and building balanced growth. So the question I pose is not whether we will urbanize or modernize and have a place for new architectural ideas. It is whether we'll do it well. And this is where architecture and planning become indispensable. So most of my initial talks were on urban planning because I have a bachelor's in architecture and a master's in city and regional planning. And for the last 25 years, most of my career has been in planning because I wanted to have a bigger impact than buildings alone. But the two are indispensable together. And for Liberia, we need to understand how the two work and how, as you go into your professions as young professions, you will be part of this voice of change and why we need to integrate the two. So, why are they indispensable? Because they're nation-building tools. They directly impact housing quality and affordability, infrastructure efficiency, public safety and resilience, investment attractiveness, and environmental sustainability. And I'm not just talking about Monrovia, Ganta, or Buchanan. I'm talking about nation building that extends beyond Monrovia and other major urban centers. It includes planning and designing for rural towns and villages, schools and clinics, markets and storage facilities, farm to market roads, water systems, and resilient housing so that development is visible and viable in every county. From Bull Waterside to Barclayville, all Liberians must be part of national development. And how well we position this relationship between planning and architecture and how well they respond to the built environment will determine whether urban growth becomes a burden or a national asset. And I'm speaking about this from not just theory, but experience. Experience working with Liberia's institutional framework. I've worked in Liberia for the last 15 years, total 25 years in this profession. I formerly served as the Commissioner of Land Use at the Liberia Land Authority and later as Deputy Minister for Urban Affairs with the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And I have seen firsthand how planning and architecture in Liberia is currently structured, and more importantly, how it is fragmented. Today, these responsibilities for both planning and architecture are split across multiple institutions. The Ministry of Public Works has a chief architect, they have a planning function. Meanwhile, there was a law passed in 2018 that transferred urban planning, land use planning, zoning to Liberia Land Authority. And then you have the Ministry of Internal Affairs that has a whole section for city and town planning. Who is doing the work? My argument is when you look at Monrovia and you look at our built environment, no one is really doing the work. And I sat in two of those places, so I'm speaking from a point of experience. And because we have this fragmentation, it delays decision making. Agencies navigate with competing mandates, inconsistent enforcement where policies are not uniformly aligned, and inefficient development outcomes. Ultimately, uncoordinated urban growth, which undermines safety, investment, and national development. But today, the Architects Registration Programs presents a framework for change and transformation. It is providing a clear and timely response to these challenges. The four pillars that are outlined in this strategy are not just guidelines, they are pillars of national development. And I'm not going to delve into the pillars because our panel would do that, but just to highlight, the first pillar is education, building the foundation of excellence. A strong built environment cannot succeed without strong professionals, and it is important to align education with international standards. As young architects, you were here, but that's how we building it in Liberia. Liberia got standards that we're supposed to really use that are not benchmarked by international standards. There's a reason why there's something called the international codes. You vernacularize it, but it's still the bedrock for what we do. The second one, professional standards, protecting the public and the profession. With this launch, we are choosing professionalism, we are choosing quality, and we are choosing safety. Your third pillar is government enforcement, turning policy into practice, the protection of lives, protection of investments, and the protection of national integrity. The fourth is market and execution, linking regulation to growth. When a regulated environment is successful, it attracts investment, reduces risk, creates jobs, and drives economic expansion. None of you graduates want to graduate without a job to do. So this is how urban development combined with architecture becomes engines of growth. But as an urban planner, second, architect first, I strongly believe that the time is now for Liberia to take a bold and strategic step. From my own experience in public service, I see an institutional problem: the lack of coordination within our built environment. And I have a strategic proposal which I will share. Fellow architects, planners, students, Liberians, if we are serious about reimagining the built environment, we must also reimagine governance. So I stand here today to advocate for the creation of a Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, collapsing many of the functions that are spread across a multiplicity of agencies into one cabinet level position. Such a ministry would not only strengthen our cities, it will guide national settlement strategy, linking cities, secondary towns, and rural communities into one coherent development vision. In doing so, we will promote balanced growth and development, supporting urban growth poles and market towns while managing urban expansion responsibly. A unified ministry will centralize planning, housing, land use. It will strengthen coordination across borders and sectors. It will elevate urban development to national priority status. It will enable long-term data-driven urban strategies, and it will align infrastructure, architecture, housing, and economic planning. Because ultimately, what we do in the built environment is not just technical, it is strategic governance. And we will not be standing alone with this change. Lessons from across Africa. We have seen important lessons emerging from right next door Sierra Leone, a country just very similar to Liberia, navigating post-conflict development, rapid urbanization, and institutional reform. They operate through a ministry of lands, housing, and country planning, which brings together land administration, housing policy, and urban planning within a single institutional framework. That is also one of the major employers of architects in Sierra Leone. In Kenya, the State Department of Housing and Urban Development plays a central coordinating role in national development, responsible for urban planning, housing policy, slum upgrading, construction standards, and investment planning. What you do will go beyond buildings. It will go beyond city plans. You have the opportunity as young architects to shape the future of Liberia, one brick at a time. Similarly, with Ghana and Rwanda, the ministries have been coordinated because of the important drive for national development. And if any of you have traveled to any of these countries, you see what national development looks like. So, the standards are clear across these countries. Urban development succeeds when it is coordinated, elevated, and institutionalized at the highest level of government. I'm almost ending. So today, I argue that we stand at a turning point. We have the talent. We have the professional institutions. We are building the regulatory framework through initiatives such as the Architects Registration Board. What remains is to complete the institutional architecture. And that is why I'm strongly advocating for this Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Today is not just about launching a program. It is about redefining a national trajectory. It is about launching a new standard, a new level of accountability, a new vision for Liberia's built environment. Today is a call to action. Let us commit to educating the next generation with rigor and purpose. Let us commit to upholding professional integrity without compromise. Enforce regulations consistently and transparently, and strengthen the link between architecture, planning, development, and economic growth. Let us commit, last but not least, to balancing urban investment with rural development so that from Foya to Fishtown, every community can have access to basic services, economic opportunity, so that urbanization is managed, not forced by rural exclusion. As I close, I leave us with these thoughts. Liberia is rapidly urbanizing. Cities and towns are expanding. The future is being built right now, especially with you young professionals. So how will it happen? Will it be planned or accidental? Will it drive prosperity or deepen poverty? The answer lies in how we reimagine our built environment today. Through the Architects Registration Program and through intentional institutional strengthening, we have an opportunity to catalyze growth and transform our cities into engines of growth, resilience, and national development. Let us seize this moment, build not just structures, but systems, not just cities, but opportunity, and not just for today, but for generations to come. God bless us all. God bless Liberia. Thank you. I stood here and talked long. You should clap a little bit more for me. Seriously. Thank you.
Can we get another round of applause for such insightful delivery this morning? I think we have heard at least 80 to 90% of what we need to know. So, Madam Pratt, we say thank you for your delivery, and we are looking forward to always contacting you for these insights. Thank you again. To take us further in this program, we'd like to recognize some distinguished personalities in the House. We have Professor Lieutenant Basiji from the niche. He's the Deputy Executive Director for Operations and Technical Vocational and Special Education at the niche. Okay. We also like to recognize Minister Wilmot A. Reeves from the MOCI, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. He's the Deputy Minister for Commerce and Trade, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. At this juncture, we'd like to proceed as per our agenda. So this is the time for some special activities. So we would like to give our microphones, okay, we already have microphones there already. Turn our microphones and our attention over to our panelists. They have their information to give us, and we'd like to hear from them. Thank you. So we'll start with number one on the platform there. Sir, can you please come to the podium, or if you want to take it from there, you can take it from there. No problem. Microphone there.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. They say morning time, I suppose. Okay, Madam Keynote Speaker, fellow keynote panelists, the organizers of this program, which will be Liberian Institute of Architects and that of the Architect Registration Board, students, faculty, and others from accredited institutions here associated with architectural program. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Executive Director, Dr. Cecilia Cassel, the senior management team and staff of the National Commission on Higher Education, I wish to express thanks and appreciation to organizers of this program for the official launch of the Architects Registration Program. Dr. Cassel would have very much loved to be a part of this great seminar, but for her current cross-country assessment tour of public colleges and universities participating in the national government's free tuition program. I should also state that the theme of this seminar, Building for the Future, Strengthening Professional Standards and Regulatory Capacity in Liberia, aligns with the key concern and goal of the National Commission on Higher Education. As some of you might already know, the National Commission on Higher Education was established by an act of the National Legislature in 1989. However, prior to 1989, only two main higher education institutions operated in Liberia, and these included the University of Liberia and Continental University College. The CWA Junior College, which is now Methodist University, in Central Monrovia, the Baptist Theological Seminary in Pinsville, and the St. Paul Seminary in Bangor County, and the African Bible College in Yakuba County also operated in Liberia during this time. But these institutions were largely unregulated by the central government. So the NCHE was created to regulate and make sure that all higher education institutions in Liberia meet the minimum national standard of quality higher education. Hence, today, all higher education institutions in Liberia must seek accreditation with the NCHE if they wish to be recognized locally and globally as credible learning institutions, as you are doing. The NCHE is also mandated not only to formulate broad policy guidelines for the establishment of higher education institutions in Liberia, but also to determine the equivalency of academic degrees, diploma, certificates, and other qualifications awarded by institutions in country and elsewhere. And I think this latter mandate goes to the heart of this seminar on the official launch of the Architect Registration Program. Prior to today, I spoke with Mr. Nathaniel Baker, one of the seminar organizers, several times about the seminar's goal, and my impression of that conversation was that he was most interested in how to best harmonize the 4-year, 45-year duration and requirement for architectural degree programs offered in and outside Liberia at the bachelor's degree level. But the Architect Registration Program being launched here today is more concerned about promoting genuine knowledge acquisition and quality output among architectural students in Liberia and securing a bright future for the architectural profession in Liberia than about harmonizing program requirements. For example, the ARP's three-step approach to building institutional standards and accreditation, inclusive of an internship program, a professional practice training program, and a pre-architect licensure program, manifests a strong commitment jointly on the part of the Liberian Institute of Architects and the Architect Registration Board to improve the quality of architectural education in Liberia. This approach meets the standard that the National Commission on Higher Education in Liberia, Higher Commission, wishes from all quality degree granting or educational institutions in the country. The NCHE welcomes and supports effort by the Liberian Institute of Architects and the Statutory Architectural Registration Board to strengthen architectural education in Liberia by its current initiatives. As a national regulatory agency on higher education in Liberia, the Commission looks forward to working with the Institute and its regulatory board to refine the standards and criteria for accreditation for architects in Liberia. The NCHE, for NCHE, the process for seeking licensure and accreditation or elevation begins with the submission of a letter of intent or letter of request. We then move on to the credential, curricular, and facility validation. In the last couple of years, the NCHE has endeavored to develop several policy guidelines relating to establishment, licensure, and accreditation of higher education institutions in the country. Among these are policy on the standardization of curriculum for freshman and sophomore courses, the licensing institution to conduct post-secondary education and training in Liberia, and the e-learning standard for higher education institution, as well as recommended physical facility standard for higher education in Liberia, which have sought to promote equity in learning opportunities at a higher education level. The NCHE has been able to update its standards on accreditation for all degree-granting higher education institutions who apply for accreditation and meet the necessary requirements. The current number of institutions accredited by the NCHE to offer degree programs in various academic disciplines at the graduate and undergraduate level is in excess of 80. I'm sure you heard the news, but we're not doing that yet now. The NCHE has been able to update this standard. With respect to credential verification, the NCHE's executive director met with presidents of colleges and universities accredited by the Commission a few months ago to discuss general operational matters, including credential audits for academic and administrative staff at each institution. The NCHE would like to see a higher education system in Liberia that requires instructors to teach only in the major and minor areas of study. But this is not currently the case. A number of academic credentials of instructors at various colleges and universities have been requested, submitted, and now been reviewed by the Commission. The Commission has also noted the acute shortage of prescribed textbook, qualified instructors, special classroom, and internet connectivity, and integrated science, laboratory, and library at many higher education institutions in Liberia. This situation poses a serious concern for quality education in Liberia. This situation by the Higher Commission initiative that register and incorporate. This situation is compounded by higher education institutions that register and incorporate disability students into the general student population. They do so without the necessary assistive devices, the language interpreters, handicap accessible ramps, and braille for the visually impaired. All of these issues require a collective will to improve upon the current situation rather than to become complacent of it. Due to all of these, our review continues, thus putting on hold the assessment of new institutions. Basically, at this place, we do not accept new institutions. To conclude, I believe that education is power and should be made mandatory for anyone who wishes to acquire knowledge in any field of human endeavor. Especially so in this modern world dominated by information technology, education becomes crucial because it holds the key to individual success or failure in so many ways. At NCHE, the emphasis is on promoting not just education, but access to quality higher education. This is necessary for building trust and confidence in oneself. It also helps to reduce inequality, promote upward mobility, and foster tolerance in society. Once again, I want to thank you for inviting the National Commission on Higher Education to participate in this launch of the Architectural Registration Program. It is my hope that all goals set for your organization will succeed. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for the Deputy Executive Director for Operations and Technical Vocational and Special Education at the niche. We also now want to welcome the Deputy Minister for Commerce and Trade, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, to come and give us what he has to give us as his thoughts on the theme today. Thank you.
Good morning to all. Let me begin by recognizing the platform guest, my colleagues, and our keynote speaker, and of course the representation of the higher education here present, and of course the authorities of the University of Liberia. Let me also recognize the hierarchy of the Liberia Institute of Architects, and of course, the Architects Registration Board. Let me also recognize if any government officials, other government officials here are present. And of course, representatives of the engineering community, want to recognize you. And then, of course, let me recognize Liberian construction contractors who may be present here this morning. And let me also recognize the business community, if you are here this morning, and I say ladies and gentlemen. I bring you greetings from my minister. She was invited to be here this morning, but due to pressing engagement, she could not make it. So she asked me to please proxy for her. Hence the reason I'm here to basically present her statement. It is best to basically begin by extending our thanks and appreciation to the Liberia Institute of Architects, and then the Architects Registration Board. You know, the team that you have selected, I consider very forward-looking, in the sense that the team, as it is stated, building for the future, strengthening professional standards and regulations capacity in Liberia. I want to basically again commend the Liberia Institute of Architects and the Architects Registration Board for embarking on this important initiative, and for the strategic leadership that you are demonstrating to operationalize the act that was sort of established in 2022. That is the Architects Act of 2022. One lesson that we have come to learn at the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is the fact that there are very beautiful laws that we have basically created, very beautiful policies and plans. But one of the challenges that we have had is actually the implementation of those laws, enforcement aspect of those laws, and the implementation of policies and plans. And I will give you an example of such a law. Coming from the 70s, around, I think, 1978, there was a sort of focus on how do we empower our Liberian entrepreneurs. And that law basically sort of got crafted into what we refer to today as the Liberianization policy. That is, we kind of set aside certain businesses as a means of saying how best we could empower Liberians to play a major part in the economy of the country. But then in around 1998, that law was somehow amended to include about 27 businesses set aside for Liberians to basically take hold of. But then again, the implementation of that law basically did not take effect. And then in 2010, the law was somehow amended again from 27 businesses to now 16 businesses. Again, from 2010, coming all the way to 2026, the law was not implemented, it was not enforced, it was not basically placed into action. And I think that law got crafted into what we're referring to as the Investment Act of 2010. And the Investment Act of 2010, if you look in that act, which is just about 13 pages, you start from page 11, and for page 10 of that act, there's a certain portion that basically set aside certain businesses, those 16 businesses, for Liberians to get involved in the economy. That was part of the means to build a certain kind of middle class in this country. Again, that law did not, the enforcement aspect of the law became very weak and no implementation took place. So this year, recently, the government decided to take a proactive measure to see how best to enforce the implementation of that law. And one aspect of that law speaks on the issue of locally manufactured products being wholly distributed by Liberian-owned businesses. And the reason why I'm bringing this out, because I will somehow sort of relate this to the Architects Act of 2022 and the certification aspect. So we have now decided to enforce the implementation of the Act of 2010. And one of the first steps that we took under the leadership of the Vice President, the Honorable Jeremiah Pancombe, and then also the Minister of Commerce and Industry, was to actually bring together all the actors involved in the commerce of the nation. All the businesses that are somehow manufacturing products in the nation, and then all those who are involved in the distribution space. Brought them together to have a dialogue, at least to have a starting point of where can we start from to start implementing. And the good thing is that the businesses that have involved in the manufacturing of products were very in agreement that there was a need to actually empower Liberians to basically serve in certain retail space and also basically be able to play a major role in the distribution of manufactured products in this nation. And then the discussion was held, and one of the first things that we decided to do, and based on the agreement that we had with the businesses, was to basically announce on air. I don't know whether that announcement has been able to filter any of us here. I don't know whether we've heard any announcement concerning the implementation of that. The reason why the announcement is being fostered is to basically let's say, garner the awareness of Liberians to know that this is an or there's an opportunity that is there for them to be able to leverage. So another thing that we also did was actually to call Liberian-owned distributors and see whether they had the capacity to even undertake the distribution of products in the nation. And then we were able to identify few of them, and they did say that they had the capacity. And then we are also encouraging other Liberians who would like to actively participate in this process to be able to do that. Now, the relationship I want to draw to this is the Liberia Business Association. The Liberian Business Association was also crafted through an act to support the growth and development of the private sector in this nation. Of course, you have also the Liberia Chamber of Commerce. But then, many of those who are participating in the reserve businesses, it was difficult to even identify who is the real owner of a business. I think you've heard about the issue of what we call fronting, where you say this business is reserved for Liberians, but then when you try to interrogate who actually owns the business, you see Liberians coming forward and say, we own the business. But then when you try to interrogate the account of the business, the account is not in the name of the person who is coming forward. And that makes it a bit complicated. So one of the things that we have decided to do is to work through the Liberia Business Association, that for businesses in the reserve sector, we will allow all business to do business registration, all businesses to do business registration. But the next time you go to renew your business registration, you must get a certification from the Liberian Business Association that indeed you are a Liberian-owned business in that reserve sector. And it is the same thing that the same analogy that I want to make with the Liberia Institute of Architects. And this is where we come in as the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, because we are basically represented on the board of the Architects Registration Board. Now we are saying, because I think the Liberia Institute of Architects is looking for a way to certify its members. And one of the ways that you can do that is the issuance of the certificate, the same way we are asking the Liberia Business Association to be able, for those businesses that are in the reserve sector, to get certification from them. Now you, who are members of the Liberia Institute of Architects, one of the things that you want to do is to professionalize your area. You want to begin by certifying people to basically be in compliance with the Architects Act of 2022. So we are saying we can partner with you through an MOU that we can sign, that before any business is registered, this person must come with the certification from the Liberia Institute of Architects. So, you know, we have to reach a point where we start to actually implement our laws. Unless we begin to do so, we will keep going in cycles and not meeting the objectives for which those laws were sort of crafted. So that's one of the ways, and I believe the Liberia Business Registry that operates under the umbrella of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is available, willing, and committed to ensuring that you implement your act that has been established. So with that said, I think the same thing applies to the Liberia Bar Association, right? Before you practice law, you must have obtained a sort of registration or a license to practice, right? It's the same thing with the Liberia Institute of Architects. Let me tell you one of the challenges, one of the issues that, and it's so timely for the Liberia Institute of Architects and the Architects Registration Board to really go through this compliance requirement. If you look all around you, many houses are being built, many structures are being built. But are they being built according to plan? Are they being built by registered architects or contractors? Are they being built by certified professionals? And that's why you see, sometimes when you see some of the structures, the way they are built, it's like some of them already leaning one side. And it's true. That's the public safety issue. Public safety issue. And then, and one of the things I also want to say here, those of you in this technical area, you see buildings being built all over the place with no parking lots, to the point that people have to start parking cars on the streets. Those of you who have had an opportunity to just travel outside, just maybe to let me just call Kenya for that matter, there's no building that will be built without a parking lot. I don't care how small the space is, they will find a way to build let's say a rotating parking lot where you have upstairs. You cannot put a giant sized building down, nowhere to park, to the point that banks, you look at the banking institutions, we have to start parking cars on the road to go to the banks. Why? How can you put a humongous building of that nature up? And that's why sometimes when I say there's a problem with the contractor who even designed the building. And I just wanted to make those points. And I say that the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is basically available to work with your institution to enforce the implementation of your own act. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Wilmot Reeves. One thing I captured from his speech is, are they being built by professional, certified practitioners? And he said something about parking lots. The minister spoke as if to say he's an architect or probably he's an engineer. This is one of the key issues in Liberia. You have huge structures, you don't have parking lots. Thank you very much, sir. We would like to inform you that if nature calls, those at the back can use the entry door and just walk alongside the building, take a left. You see that building there? That's the Eastment facilities. And for all of our distinguished guests and presenters and panelists, you can just take this, use this door. That's the building over there for Eastment. So to take us further in this program, we'd like to welcome to our podium one of our giants within the built environment. He's an architect, he's a developer. His work speaks for him. If you ride around Moravia City, you see his works. If I may just revert a little bit on the biblical side, Paul said, you say you got faith, but show me your faith and I will show you my works. So if you call yourself a builder, architect, we want to see your works. He's none other than architect Sophenos O'Connor, and he's going to take us through the session. Now we are going to take some topics on the architect's registration program, and he's going to be the one to start that flow. Architect O'Connor, can you please come?
Distinguished guests, panelists, thanks for responding to our call. Members of the Architects Registration Board, representatives of institutions of higher learning, particularly particularly University of Liberia and Stella Marie. Mr. Minister, thank you for the support stated in asking or agreeing that an MOU be signed. I think this is important. Very quickly, this session is about those who are stakeholders, the major stakeholders who are going to benefit from this program. Those who are seeking to become architects. We want to just do a summarized presentation of the Architects Registration program. I think we're supposed to be having 3 presenters, so we'll have to be brief. The scope of the presentation will cover basically what needs to be done, the journey that needs to be taken by someone that is interested in becoming an architect, as I said, and also how the institutions that will guide this process will interact with the stakeholders. The ARP is a document that was developed by the LI and approved by the ARB. And it has its legal foundation in the Act of 2021. And the statement that gives it that legal basis is that it's an act to make provision for the licensing and registration of architects. I think you should have in the documentation that's been provided, there is a statement that is in the current president of the LI's message that is poignant to the implementation of the Architects Registration Council architect registration program. And it says, seek mentorship, master our national building codes, and never lose sight of the LIA Code of Ethics that binds us as a community. The ARP is a comprehensive guide to a three-tier process. And the three-tier process consists of the Architect's Internship Program, which is the AIP, the Professional Practice Training Program, and the Pre-Architect's Licensure Program. So basically, the first item there speaks to the mentorship, meaning that every aspirant needs to be mentored in the practicals of how architecture is to be practiced. We'll delve into those a little bit later. And then there's the Pre-Architect's Licensure Program. And basically what that does is that it assesses your ability and establishes your readiness to take the exams. So it goes through an audit process where it determines whether you have attained all of the requirements and therefore you're ready to be admitted and licensed, and after that, registered. So if you have, I think that everyone should have copies of the ARP. The table of contents clearly indicates all the details that are covered therein. And further down, the appendices that provide detailed information on supporting documents that are mentioned in the main body of the handbook. So, in reference to this three-tiered process, the three-tiered process is an interactive process involving the intern, the employer. Now, the employer is an industry player, and that employer gives you access to the industry and for you to participate in the industry in terms of how it gets done. So basically what it's saying is that an intern needs to be attached to an entity that provides architectural service, and that entity must be licensed and registered. And so, therefore, the employer is your industry access guarantor. And that is captured in your logbook. The mentor, you also have to have a mentor. So you can have a mentor within the office that you're working with, or as we know, the real realities out there is that maybe there are as many offices around that will grant everyone, every aspirant, access to work. But you could still, if you engage in private work, you should still have a mentor. And this is why the supervisor or mentor is very important, because that person guides you, and that mentor has to be a licensed and registered architect. So that mentor takes full responsibility for guiding the learning process of the intern. And then the LIA is the gatekeeper of record that ensures that the professional practice training program requirements are fulfilled And when the LI establishes that, then the LI reports and sends forth your name to the ARB. So it is the ARB that actually bestows the license upon the aspirant. The professional practice training program, which we call the PPTP, will run a series of lectures, group sessions, continuous assessments of ongoing work activities, and submitted logbook compilations. So we need to take note of these. When you train in group sessions, you have the opportunity to exchange ideas. You have the opportunity to become a part of the experiences that your colleagues have been exposed to. So therefore, the trading of information and ideas between the participants of those discussion sessions will deepen the breadth and depth of information that is to be discussed. And then the whole act of collective decision-making becomes an asset that will benefit everyone that is going through that process. Then continuous assessments, that means that every aspirant must take part in those discussion sessions. Because the determination of one being assessed to be ready to take the ARE is not based on, or being granted a license is not based on an exam. It's based on a continuous assessment process. And that process involves also the architect's internship program, which is recorded through your logbook that is submitted. So I hope these points are taken into account. The pre-architect's licensing program handles the final examinations. So some of these exams will take various forms. There will be written ones, there will be oral ones, and assessment across all requirements of the ARP for licensing and registration. And then there's the eligibility and scheduling procedures. Now, basically what this deals with is how do you determine if you're eligible to embark on the architect's registration program? First, you have to be, it must be determined that you're a member of the LIA, and this process has begun. The LIA has gone through a rigorous process of populating, increasing the number of members that it has. And in doing that, there is a check or there is an audit on the minimum academic qualifications that are to be met. And also required is institutional teaching, institutional enrollment. So this institutional enrollment means that if you're a student of architecture, so the AIP actually begins from your being in an institution of learning. So the way that the practical training component is integrated in different institutions vary. In some, there's a gap year that is taken. In others, it's required that you that the student is employed during vacation period, and then the period of work are cumulatively added so that you can attain up to 12 months of practical experience. Okay, so and then in others is where it is required that you if you have been working for many years, you can compile information on the work that you've done. In other words, you compile your record of drawings and then extent of participation in the various work that you've been doing. And then those are submitted. And then you have to have a logbook. The logbook is a very important aspect. So those will be presented, I think, later by my other colleagues. So the logbook is used to track the experience and core competencies in areas that are required. Then there's the equivalency pathway. As we know, we all attain our academic qualifications from different institutions, and then there are different systems. Here in Liberia, we have two. We have the University of Liberia that does the 5-year program, and then we have Stella Maris that does the 4-year program. So therefore, you end up with either with a Bachelor in Architecture, which is considered a professional qualification, or Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Arts, which is considered a non-professional one. But the LI allows a pathway to get to the ARP. Now, master's, postgraduate diploma, PhDs can be either professional or non-professional. For instance, if you have a master's in architecture with a focus on history, or maybe some other humanities, or, then those are not considered as professional degrees. So distinctions will be made. PhD, if you do a first degree in architecture, it's non-professional, and then you follow a path that takes you through non-professional masters and PhD. That also means that you will be subjected to a pathway that is equivalent also to that of a first degree holder who has a non-professional degree. So pathway to the licensure through in the ARP recognizes professional degree holders and non-professional degree holders. Now, because of Liberia's peculiar situation arising from the civil crisis which happened a long time ago, and also partly the fact that we have not had a School of Architecture in Liberia until recent. We have a lot of people who have been practicing. They've had qualifications which are either non-professional or otherwise, but they've accumulated years and years of experience. They've worked under qualified architects. They've worked under licensed architects. They've held positions in the public sector or the private sector, and they recognize as being sufficiently qualified to be considered to embark on the ARP. But because of the number of years that they have been engaged in the industry, the LI also coupled with the fact that there's a need to expand the number of practitioners, and also considering that there's the older group of architects, such as myself, are kind of fastly fading. So the young ones need to come in and get themselves into active work and to pick up the slack. So we've decided, and this was done I think it was said at the previous seminar. So the ARP now recognizes that and has made a determination that a one-off fast-track program is embarked upon. And this fast-track program will be for a year. The purpose of it, like I said, is to streamline transition from intern to professional practice. So all of those that fit that category, which I explained earlier, will be considered as intern. And the target audience will be those that have now been admitted as members of the LIA and will be screened as being eligible to embark upon the ARP. So in terms of requirements, candidates must be LIA members, meet defined thresholds in education, and they should have signed supervising agreements. That means that even though you have a wealth of experience in the industry, you should also have a signed agreement with someone who's prepared to take you on as a mentor stroke supervisor. And you should be able to demonstrate that you have verified experience record. So you will need to take your time to fill in a logbook, and this logbook should clearly explain. The logbook has a structure which we will provide, that you've been exposed to all of the areas that are necessary to make anyone a rounded architect. So, sorry, can I have one of the ARPs? I just want to borrow one. Where's it? Yeah, let me use yours. So if we all have this, I'll just call out a few pages. Okay, if we go to page 18. Now, page 18 spells out the categories that we expect those in training to be exposed to while they are attached to their places of work. Category A, design and construction documents. And there's a listing and the number of hours that have been allocated to each of those activities relating to design and construction documents. Category B, construction administration. Likewise, number of hours are stated. Category C, management, detail. So that means that everyone that will be deemed to have fulfilled the requirements from a practice point of view must have been exposed to these three categories. And these are the three categories that make up practice in an architecture, in the architecture world. And total, by the time you become eligible to receive a license, you should have accumulated a total of 3,500 hours. And those number of hours will be accumulated over, it's either 2 years for a professional degree holder or 3 years for a non-professional degree holder. Now, it needs to be made clear that it is not automatic that an aspirant will go through the program at the first go. So it has been known that people do receipts several times. So you will have to do it until you're able to make the required grades. And also show that you have been exposed to all of these. So for those who are going to be taking on the responsibility to mentor, should ensure that every aspirant is actually exposed to all of these areas while they're in the employ. Okay. So I think this basically closes the this presentation. There's another from my colleague that goes a little bit in detail on some of these aspects that I spoke about. Thank you very much.
As we can see, the ARP is not just a policy framework. It is a structural pathway towards professionalism, accountability, and excellence within our industry. You can see that each component have been carved in such a way that when you go through those components, you come out productive and ready for the market. Before we call upon our next presenter, we'd like to recognize one of our panelists. He's representing the Ministry of Public Works and the Minister of Public Works is none other than Engineer Benjamin Yedibo. He sits right on the platform. Please just wave to the crowd. We also want to recognize our ARB memberships. Architect Elisandro Massey, Mr. Abraham Wua. He is the center manager for the GVTC, the Gateway Vocational Training Center there in Bensenville, Bento. And also we want to recognize our Professor Instifu from the University of Liberia. And also our female architect. Her name just slipped my mind, but she's here. Please welcome Madame Osere.
Alisa Batu Obajim.
She's from the SMPU, the Stella Maris Polytechnic University. Not to waste your time, we'd like to call upon architect George Nkisia to our podium. And he's going to climax this session on the presentation of the ARP. Please come, sir. Please come.
Thank you very much. So, okay, good afternoon, everybody. I will stay on the existing protocol and recognize the entire guest, the panelists, I would say, and to the LIA family, the senior. I just want to make a little injection. Mr. Okono is my colleague. No, my junior colleague. They were always senior. So Mr. Massey, Mr. Okono, and the rest of the family, I would say thank you for the opportunity to the students. So I will be, like I'm being introduced, but you know my name already. I'm George Nkisia. a newly admitted member of the LIA, and I'm also a part-time lecturer at the University of Liberia Architecture Program with Professor Isifu there. Thank you for the opportunity, Professor Isifu. And I also work with the Ministry of Public Works as the Director for Public Buildings and Construction Standards. That's a huge one. So all of those, couple what we are here today. Thank you. So our time is not really in our favor. I got limited time to present. So Architect Okono has spoken a lot about the entire process constituting the ARE. And there's a particular point, a part of it I'm going to elaborate on more, which had to do with the PALP, which is the Pre-Architect Lesson Program. So we want to say, what is the PALP when we talk about PALP? So we are saying that the PALP is an evaluation process. The evaluation process that comes after he talked about the step 1, the AIP, step 2, the PPTP. So AIP is the Architect Interim Program. I'll let you recap a little bit to establish the footing for the ALP. So there are 3 steps within the ARE. The ARE is not just one step, it's 3 steps. So you go through your academic program. During the academic program, you do your internship, which will be recorded, your log. After that, when you graduate with your diploma from wherever, you come back. Mr. Okono made it clear on the different processes and whether you from outside or where. So I just recapping. So you come back after the graduation, during your academic sojourn, you are required to complete the AIP, which is Architect Interim Program. So then you come to the next step, which is the Professional Practice Program, PPTP, and Training Program. This is where you have all of those steps that he spoke about. You go on a lesson architect for another training, professional training, getting involved with the actual work on the field, out of the field, and all of those. So when all of those are being completed and you feel the need to be licensed, then to embark on the process of applying for the license, the license, which will be the main process will be the PALP. I hope that is established. So the PALP is an evaluation process. The PALP will consider your AIP, your PPTP, going to school, your diploma, and come from school, your professional training. There's a timeline to it. I think the entire PPTP should be, after yours, should be, like he said, they are 1 year based on certain category. There are 24 months on certain category, and there may be 36 months on other categories. So that is the period we consider to be the PPTP. So from there, you come down to the PALP. So PALP is when you do your submission through the LIA to the ARB, because they both work together. So you submit through LIA. That means you will first submit for membership at LIA and get admitted, and your process starts with the PALP. Then the evaluation starts. So the PALP, so that's what we mean by the. So they say, what are the main and final requirement? I think I just spoke about them. You submit your form, your sound form, and sound code of ethics. Okay, so one of the final steps there, after your application and submitting your form and all of those things to be considered for the PALP, one of the final steps is taking the final examination. So the final examination is going to be both oral and written. That means that you're going to go for interview, you sit the interview, and they will interview you on everything they need to know about you to make sure that you are qualified. Then the final step is doing the what we call that's part of the ARE. So the ARE is the architect's registration examination. So you do the 2 tests. But the ARE It's also a process that involves the PALP. So PALP is the final stage to getting your licensure. So, but remember that the ARE or the ARP is a process that starts from the AIP. So remember that. So by the time you embark on learning architecture and roll into the program, you will know that you already started the process. That ends at the PALP. So quickly, oh, excuse me. Okay. So I will talk about the objective a little bit. So what are the objectives of the PALP? Is it final professional and regulatory phase? That means your professional journey. This is where candidate prove that they are qualified. So you say the second one under the objective is, one of the objectives is you got to show, you got to know that you're exam ready. You're ready for the final test. Exam readiness phase. And it also establishes your eligibility. So we will know from the PALP that you're eligible after the review or during the evaluation process, that you're eligible, you're qualified and eligible to start your own professional practice as an architect, registered architects. So, yeah, so Mr. Okono talked about the ARE in depth, so I will not want to do more on that. And because of time, I don't know how much time I have left. All right. So he spoke more about the ARE. We also, everything that we have spoken about, he spoke about, and I've just constituted the entire ARE. But there's something very interesting you need to know about. During the process, there is something the LIA and ARB have developed that's called the mock exam checklist. It's very important, most especially for the students, the mock exam checklist. So this will definitely evolve over time and within time. There are things you need to prepare for and look at. I just want to give you some things in the checklist. Something I'll be looking for from when you embark on your career. So we talk globally about AIP, PPTP, and PALP, but there are other things that honor that particular component that they need to take into consideration while you go through the process. So we talk about practice area, all right? We talk about practice management, project management, programming analysis, project planning and design, project development, documentation. Those are things that you need to consider during your training. I mean, from all the way from AIP to PPTP. You got critical thinking. Architects should be critical thinkers, right? You should be able to do general technical architectural work, right? You should be able to do your land use planning, your space planning, you know, and all of those. Writing, I want to emphasize on the one, writing. Now, when we talk about writing, not just writing, report writing. Architects are called to be good writers. Most of the architects are philosophers. Most of them in philosophy, they will write. Most of the architects, renowned architects, have books. So you write. It's not just technical, but it's philosophy. The way you see your own aspect of your vision and how you see it. You start practicing that one. So, but key to that is you need to know how to write a standard report. Architectural report, you go to supervision, you got a supervision report, you went for assessment, do your assessment report. Even your presentation, your final submittal, in most schools, I know we're going to do it in our program, you're just going to submit through design. You're going to write how you came up with the design, you're going to write the first phase of how you came up with the concept, the different attachment, and what have you. So, speaking. When you hear about speaking, so speaking is not just, I just talk to you. There are key type of speaking. One is you gotta get a good negotiation skill. You should be able to talk to client, you and client relation. You gotta know how to hold meetings. You gotta know how to convey messages, between all parties or stakeholders within a project. So don't be like one paper I know. You know, talking to my sister on the project, he just taking all kind of big technical thing, they poking honest and they put in inside, they call me. I said, we're getting honest in man. So, quickly. So in all the critical things, drawings, modeling, all those things, I think you should know. You know, we got softwares now, some of you are mastering, but the transmitter from the 2D to 3D is key. Some people can do fun 3D. When they finish with 3D, when you go look at the plane itself, it's not functional. We don't want to be like that. So modeling should represent the actual 2D that is comprehensive. So we come to building practice and technical skills. Yes, so it also include the architectural softwares, construction materials. You need to know much about that. Architectural solution and design principles, construction administration. Architects, when they say project supervisor, you not just go there and stay, finish, you come back. No, you should be able to take charge. I was taught, and all along I know that architects lead the projects. They lead. There's a conflict between architects and engineer, but no matter the engineer, fee salary engineer, the architects lead the project. So you should be able to have a proper management skill, construction administration skill. So we got others are the integrated architectural solution, integrating design, you know, professional practice and technical skills. Those are key skills that you need to bring to the table. Then we'll have the professional practice we spoke about. So there's something on what we call business principle, ethics, codes, and standards. So I will talk about the last two. So business principle, like I talk about negotiation skills, but there are other techniques you need to bring about. Architects, you know, something about office management, you know, you'll be called to run. One of the senior one, they say, look, I'm getting old. Come and sit there and run this place. You should know office management. You should be able to have some other skills, like business principle skills, what to do, what not to do. I will leave you with this. Always stick to the rules. If you want to be a good architect, stick to the rules. Stick to the rules. What makes you a good supervisor is that you stick to the principle, the established rules, the established BOQ, the established quality. Do not change. For some of the big brothers I work with, you know, I've been very tough on the contractor with that one. So, when they at the mansion, you know, I used to get the guys out and say, what to do? And you'll be laughing, say, Josh. So, finally, so ethical and standards. So even though we have our panelists that be talking about the, from the Ministry of Public Works angle, that be talking about enforcement, and I'm from the standard background, because our bureau. So our honorable guest speaker, or keynote speaker, talk about, made some emphasis on it, but we have to follow ethics, and we have to keep standards. That's the core value of architecture, of an architect. So with all the beautiful things you do, bear in mind that. So standard for Liberia, we stay struggling. We use international standard, most the American codes, the international codes, but stick to best practice. The Ministry of Public Works is my bureau in the process of we developing what we call a proposal, because we don't have the capacity to say we want to do the code. So we're developing a proposal for building codes that are going to engage the LIA, the ESOL, and all stakeholders. Yes, we have to have that code. So who's going to drive it? We just want to develop the proposal. Is at the final stage. We review internally, then we invite all of the stakeholders and set up, and we start playing together and set up a movie. So very soon that is coming, so that we can have our standards. So parallel to that, okay, yeah. So the probably will talk more about enforcement. I will not go there. So before I leave the podium, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to our first speaker, which is the keynote speaker. There were key things that she mentioned, and I just want to say I support, I stand for that ministry. It's very important. Morocco, where I studied in, they had crisis, and this crisis was slum crisis, and it caused serious riot. People died. That was around the early 80s, late 70s. And by the time they established that Ministry of Housing, Human Settlement, and Urban Affairs, go see Morocco today. Just go Google Casablanca, Marrakesh, Rabat, you will see the different landscape change. So I support that. So be a good student, follow standards, follow code, follow principles. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Architect George Nkisia, for your delivery. We'd like to recognize our sponsors. I'd like to ask if we have any representative within the audience representing either the Brighton or the Food Construction Incorporated. If, okay, you, 3. So I just got word our sponsors will be arriving by 3 o'clock. But we just want to highlight the fact that we have Brighton and Food Construction Incorporated as our sponsors. Brighton, as you can see, there is our premium sponsor. That's why you see the letters are very large and very bold. And then we have Food Construction. They are in the category of our silver sponsorship. We have 4 categories: premium, gold, silver, and basic. And Brighton is in the premium category. Food Construction is within the silver category. It's because of their support that this program is a success today. So we'd like to recognize them. By 3, when they are here, they will come and we'll give them a chance to speak. To take us further in this program, we'd like to call upon the representative of the Ministry of Public Works, representing the minister, Engineer Benjamin Yedibo, to come and take the stage so that we can hear from the Ministry of Public Works on what they have to say to us concerning this program. Engineer Yedibo.
Thank you. So thank you. Let me recognize our keynote speaker, Madam Edwin Pratt Harrix. I'd like to recognize the interim president of the ARA, Architect Adolphus McCready, and members of the ARA, representation from the institutions of learning, Stella Maris Polytechnic, my own alma mater, the University of Liberia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So I bring you greetings from the Ministry of Public Works, and would like to register here that the minister would really love to be here, would have loved to be here. Unfortunately, the time interfere with the minister's meeting where key decisions are made, and today is a very important meeting. So he asked that I represent him and the Ministry of Public Works. So for the Ministry of Public Works, Uncle, I think we mainly going to focus on the enforcement component, because when the Architect Act was passed in 2022, or the Act was passed, the ministries play a key role. And I would like to give credit to our former boss, Madam Rufoko Collins, who was somehow instrumental in the passage of the Act. So, and we also like to register here that from the ministry perspective, the launching of this architect registration program is just not an achievement of milestone for the LIA alone, but I think it's a declaration that as a country, Liberia, we are prioritizing safety, we are prioritizing regulations and integrity in the built environment. So I think this is a key start for the built environment, because if you have a sector that is somehow not regulated, it comes with consequences. And that consequences, and those consequences come with a lot of economic burden on the country. And in most cases, we might underestimate it. So for the Ministry of Public Works, and we will be more on the enforcement. We're going to cooperate with the Liberia Institute of Architects. And I would like to say something. If you were to reference the Architect Act, you will realize that the Ministry of Public Works was placed on the Architect Registration Board. And that placement of the Ministry of Public Works gives the ARA a governmental authority to enforce and regulate the fact that it's just not a ceremonial position holding, but it's a legislative action. So it gives the Liberia Institute of Architects the authority to enforce and regulate the setup. So from the enforcement perspective, we have prior to legislation, we have already begun to enforce component of the setup. You realize that at the Ministry of Public Works, we talk about stem joints. So no joints come at the Ministry of Public Works without a registered architect stamp. And from today's launch, we're going to reinforce that component of it, that there will be no permit without a registered architect stamp, because we know that from the launch of this program, the area are going to take cease of ensuring that whatever stamp that is placed on the joint, that professional person has been duly authorized stamp whatever joint that comes for permit. And at the permit desk, without a registered architect stamp, that permit will not be permitted from the ministry's perspective. That comes with enforcement. Another component of enforcement is, as government institution, we know the Ministry of Public Works is just not the only institution in the built environment. We have other governmental institutions that carry on other infrastructural works. So from the ministry's perspective, the ministers would like for me to assure the LRA that you're going to cooperate and coordinate with all governmental institutions, that contracts given out to contractors, whether in the service industry or the built environment, we're going to ensure that joints given out to, or contracts for designs given out to any personnel, we ensure that person is a duly registered member of the LRA. And we have started that already from the PBCC perspective. So we have this MOU with the Public Procurement and Concessions Commission that prior to the issuance of no objection or approval for any infrastructure project, and one of the key requirements that the PBCF has shown us is that in terms of firm, if you're a contractor, if you're a contracting firms into the construction industry, you're going to ensure that you are duly registered and captured under the Ministry of Public Works, CCC, what we call the construction contractor classification system. And then as one of the key requirements is to ensure that you have a CCC certificate. So from the launch of this program, one of the key requirements also is that as part of your key staffing, the PPCC, we're going to also work with the PPCC, that one of the key requirements will be that part of your key staffing, if you have an architect, that person is duly registered with the LRA before the PPCC give an approval towards the execution of the project. So that's that's the other component of the enforcement part of it. And lastly, one of the enforcement component that Architect George just mentioned is the building codes. So currently, like George mentioned, we currently don't have a building code from the ministry's perspective. We use other international building codes and reference it. But we're in the process of developing a building code, and that process will not be independent of the LRA. We'll rely on the LRA to guide us through, because I think that's what partnership is all about. And the ministers want me to assure you finally, of course, from the enforcement perspective, I think the overall objective is to save lives. And going forward, the coordination mechanism between the Ministry of Public Works and the other and that of the LI will be more rigid and more cooperative. So thank you so much, and I look forward to a successful launch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we should have had the ALCC in attendance, the ESOL also in attendance, but they are not here yet. And we have reached the hour of 11:50. I know that our brains are working, but our stomachs are negotiating. So at this time, we would like to pause as we take our lunch, and then we can network, and we can come back now and sit, and then we start our brain work again. Thank you. So we'd like to start with our panelists. We ask our panelists to proceed to the lunch bar so that you can take your lunch. Our distinguished panelists, we ask you to proceed to the lunch bar so that you can take your lunch. Our distinguished panelists, we ask you to proceed to the lunch bar so that you can have your lunch.